Hey everyone, welcome back to another battle report on the Crimson Moon. Today we're going to be playing some Deadzone by Mantic Games. We'll be playing a small 100-point skirmish game so that we can get the rules down, learn the game, and that way you guys can also kind of learn with us as we go along. So we don't actually have the newest starter for this game. We have the 2nd edition starter, and all we're using is the Mantic Companion, which gives you all the rules and also a sweet army builder. So that's what we're going to be using today. The mission we'll be playing today is Patrol, and the only thing is we're not going to be using any items, just to make it a little easier. All we're using are the victory points, and then we'll be playing 100 points as I mentioned earlier, and we're going to go ahead and show you the armies that we'll be using today. So writing up an army for Deadzone is pretty simple. The first thing you need to start off with is your leader, which we have a rebel cell leader right here. And then after that, you start adding troops, which will be having 4 rebel troops for her under her command. And for each troop you purchase, you can buy specialists. And I only have one specialist, which is this rebel Territor, whatever. Something like that. But this is 100 points. I didn't add any extra like equipment or anything, just to kind of keep it simple, and just so that way we can kind of get the rules down for the game. But this is the Rebels or Rebs, and we'll take a look at the foe they will be facing. And the Rebs will be facing the Veer-myn, evil space rats. What? How cool is that? So to start it off, we have our leader, which is the progenitor. He is armed with a chemical grenade launcher. Then I have 3 crawlers, which have ray guns, nothing special. And then I have 3 crawlers, which are armed with ray pistols and little knives, I guess, for combat. They're a little bit better in hand-to-hand compared to these guys, which are more shooty. And then for specialist, I'll have the Nightmare, which is armed with the twin combat drill. These are all troops, 1 specialist, and then the main leader itself. So now we have your stats for your characters. This is the Rebs leader, and each stat stands for something, of course. Your SP is your speed, how fast you are. Your first number is going to be your advance. Your second number is going to be if you sprint, which allows you to pretty much run. Your RA is your range combat, how good you are at shooting. FI is your fight, how good you are in fighting and hand-to-hand. Your survive is pretty much your saving throw. And your armor is how much you can soak up if you do take damage. And your HP is how much life that you're going to have before you're terminated from the game. Your size actually does make a difference in this game because it's all cube or square based, and each specific square you can only have so many of a character depending on the size of the character. So we'll go over that once we get on the board. Your base size, how big your base is also to determine if you can go through certain holes, because if you'll notice on some of this terrain, there's going to be big holes, small holes that you can actually go through, and as long as there's an opening, you can actually fit through there. Then you'll have all their abilities, which of course, her being a leader, she's gonna have different stats, different talents on here. And then of course what she's armed with, a rifle, that's how many squares that she can shoot, up to 6 squares. And then she'll have her keywords, which these do certain things depending on what she's doing or shooting or whatnot, rapid fire training and whatnot. For 10 points, you can give her an energy shield, which we didn't buy. And then this is how many points you the opponent gets if they do kill her. She is worth 2 victory points. And each character is going to have what they're worth as well. 1 victory point for the troopers. Hey, Territon, that was his name. Okay, whatever. The Territon is, actually doesn't stay on here, but I think he's worth 2 victory points if I'm not mistaken, since he is a specialist. So it didn't say it on the app itself, but it does say 3 victory points is what that Territon is worth. And this is on the printout that I did for the Rebs. They can have And you have short actions, you have long actions. Short actions are going to be stuff like advancing, which is one movement. Like for her, she has a movement of 1, so you can move to any square that you're wanting to move to. There's also your shoot action, which is also a short action. And then you also have different special actions that you can do throughout the game. Long actions would be assault. If you're going to be assaulting a character that's in front of you, like for example here, that would be a long action to it's basically a charge basically. And then there's also some shooting actions depending on the weapon you have that are also going to be long actions that you have to take. So how do you shoot? Well, you'd be making a shooting test, and your base start for shooting is you're rolling 3d8s. The target would be rolling 3 dice for his survive test. Now you do get a couple of modifiers for shooting. If he's out in the open, you get +2 dice. If you're on higher ground, like for example up here, you begin an additional die on top of that. If for any reason you have a buddy in the same square as the enemy you're trying to shoot, you're at -2 to your die. If he's of any type of cover, you only have your base 3 dice. Now, the only thing you're ever modifying is your dice. You're never modifying your stat. So whatever her stat is, which is a 4 or better, that never gets modified no matter what. So like right now, let's say she's shooting there. She is higher ground, and she is also clear line of sight. So that means she's going to start with 3, adding 2, and then +1 because she's on higher ground. So any 4s or better here means she gets a hit. So the 3s would go away, and she's got 4 hits. But this game does have an exploding system. Any 8s that you roll, you're going to be adding additional die for each 8 that you roll. So for example, she got 2 8s there, she's adding 2 more, so that's another 2 more hits on top of the 4 she already had. So that means that she has a total of 6 hits. Now the defender is going to have to make a 3 die survive test. Now let's just say she's shooting a Reb, the Reb trooper. Reb troopers have a save of 6 or better, so that means he needs to roll 6+. And once again, he doesn't get anything modified to his stat, only his die rolls. In this case, it's only a 3 because it never really goes into the negative for that. So any 6s, wow, man, he did pretty good. But he saved all 3, but no 8s. If you rolled 8s, for example, here, he would have had additional die to roll. So here he would be saving 3, so 3 would be negated, but 3 would still go through. So that means that that's going to be past his threshold of wounds, and he has no armor. So actually he has 2 wounds, but with the 3 damage that was done to him, that means that he would be dead. So that would take this guy out. So how does combat work? Well, combat is pretty much the same as shooting. The only thing is there's a little bit more modifiers to it. Let's say that he wanted to go ahead and make an assault here. He would move his distance into that spot. And now he would be making a combat test. So the Deadzone would be in 3. And the opponent, when it comes to assault, he has a choice. He could make an assault back, or he can do a survive test. So if he's making an assault back, he's going to be rolling off his combat stat. If he wants to make a survive, then he'd be rolling off of his survive stat. Now, if he does survive, he doesn't do anything. If he wins the combat, nothing happens and he just stays as a stalemate. If he does fight back, if he wins the combat, he can actually potentially kill whoever who charged him. Now, for here, since this is a bigger model, he would be gaining an additional die because he is a bigger model. He moved into the square that he just got in, so that's an additional die. And if he had a buddy, he would be rolling in another additional die. So the Deadzone right now is up by 5, and the defender only has 3. So that means that he would be rolling his 5 dice, and you would be looking at his fight, which is a 4 better. So that means that he would, any 4s here is a potential hit. So he got a couple of hits. He did get an 8, so that's an exploding 8. He would get an additional die, and that is an additional hit. So that means he's hitting on 4 hits, and now the Reb Trooper has to try and defend, which in this case, we will just say he's gonna fight back. His fight is a 6. Now, if we chose survive, it's the same thing. So I would say let's just fight back and see if he can try and do some damage back to the pterodon. So he did save 3, and he got an exploding 8. Actually, the 5 does fail. I forgot that it's a 6. So that means in this case, he would block 3. So these 3 would be gone, but 1 would go through. He has no armor, so he would take 1 point of damage from the hit. Other modifiers that I forgot to mention is if the opponent is injured, you'd get an additional die. And also, if he was pinned, the pterodon would get an additional die as well. If they're just surviving, they would get +1 to their die for every friendly other character that's in that same cube. And they would also get a +1 die if the opponent that charged them is injured. So taking a closer look at moving, when you're moving, as long as 50% of your base is in the square that you're wanting to move into, that's the primary square that you will be at. So for example here, let's say you want to take advantage of this terrain. Since he's such a big model, you can kind of turn him. Facing's not really a big deal in the game, but for here, for example here, a little bit of his base is still touching here, but his primary location is in this spot. So you can, that would be a legal move right there. As I mentioned earlier, there's also a whole lot of holes in a lot of this terrain. So like for example, this humongous hole here, anything size 1 or 2 in basing could technically go through this wall and be placed in that cube. So he, for example, I believe he is a size 3. So actually he wouldn't be able to fit through here, but like any of the rebel troopers could fit through here, or even a size 2. So since he's a little too big, he wouldn't be able to fit through this hole. Same thing goes for these little windows, just like right here. These will technically be size 1, I'm sorry. So size 1 characters like the rats and the rebel troopers would all be able to fit and actually go into that cube if they wanted to. So how do you move from one area to the top area? It's fairly simple the same way. If you're, for example, here and you want to do a run, you can technically move this character 1 here, and since there's a ladder there or a climbable area, they can technically be put here for 2. And once you're in any of that square, you can technically be, you could put them in any area in that square as long as you're in the square. So for example here, he could take cover right behind that little wall if you wanted to. If you're trying to get to a higher elevation, like for example, you're starting in this area here, you would have to do a sprint in order to climb up all the way to the top. And there is a ladder there, so you would basically have to get somewhere where it's climbable to make it more realistic, basically. So like for here, people can climb up from one area to the area to this top area, and then once you're in there, you can be placed anywhere in that cube section. This would be impossible to climb up because there's really no way to climb up there, or if there's like a wall there, like for example over here, well, you could probably climb up there and you would still be able to be put placed on top. But it's kind of just discretion, depending on your opponent and yourself, what you think is climbable and whatnot. But it usually only takes like one movement to get from one square to the other, unless it's like a double square like this one here. Now we're going to be taking a look at command dice. So what are command dice? Well, these are kind of like command points, to be honest. Before the game starts, well, technically after your recon roll, both you and your opponent are going to roll 3 command dice. Now this does change depending on the leader that you picked, because some of them have an ability called Tactician. And Tactician, like for example, the Rebel Cell leader has Tactician 2. So that means that she'll be adding an additional 2 dice to this roll. So what do they each mean? Well, for example, here, she will have 3 different types of actions that you can use throughout that specific turn. The swords is an extra combat action. The hit is an extra shoot action. The arrow is an extra move, extra square. And then this, you add an additional die to any test, whether it being survive, shooting, or combat. There's also the splat, which all your commanders actually have a special ability. So, for example, the Rebel Cell Leader has Jack of all trades. That's a special ability that she can use, and you use those splat dice, and you can actually do her ability for that. And I think that's all the ones. Oh, actually, this one allows you to activate an additional model on your turn, and that actually subsides the I go you go, because you can actually spend one of these before the end of your turn. You can actually go with an additional model before your opponent does. Now, all these actions are in addition. They're free actions, so that means if somebody's already shot on the board, if you spend one of these, you can still activate and shoot with that character once again. So this is the only way that you can actually activate a character a second time, or shoot with a character a second time. Without these, everything is limited to just one action that you can do, one shoot and one move, and that's it. So these are really cool mechanics that they added to the game. All right, so how do you start off a game? Well, once you've picked your mission, you've got your characters all ready to go, you're going to be rolling what is called a recon test. You and your opponent will be rolling 5 dice, and then you'll be looking at your table. So, for example, the Rebel Cell Leader needs a 4 better for her recon, and this will determine if you go first or if you want your opponent to go first, depending on who wins the initiative roll. So, for example, here, she got all successes, so that's 5, plus she got 8s. So keep in mind, 8s always explode no matter what you're rolling for, no matter what test you're doing. And she rolled 2 additional 8s, so that's another 2, and those were successes as well. So she got a total of 2, 4, 6, 8, 9. She got 9 successes. So I believe the VeerMyn, let me take a look and see what their test would be. The VeerMyn has a recon of 4 better, and so it's pretty much the same. So he only got 2 successes, but they are 2 8s, and he just got 1 more, so he got a 3. So that means that the Rebs would be taking the first turn unless she wanted to make the VeerMyn go first. So it all depends on the player that won the recon test. They determine if they want to take the initiative or if they want their opponent to take the initiative. So now that we've gotten the basics down, let's go ahead and get this game started. We'll be using the colored dice for the Skaven, or VeerMyn, I should say, not Skaven. That's a different game. And then the all white dice will be for the Rebs. So the VeerMyn have a recon of 4+, and so does the Rebel Cell Leader. So 4s are better. Whoever scores the most is going to take priority. Pick the sides and choose who's going to go first. So right now we've got 3 successes for the Rebs, and for the VeerMyn, looks like they'll have 4 successes. So it looks like it's going to be going to the VeerMyn. We're going to set up everything and show you what it looks like. And we have deployed. The VeerMyn have chosen this side. They have their Nightmare and some crawlers on this side over here, and then followed by the Progenitor, and then we have the Stalkers in this corner right over here. The Rebs chose the opposite side, which deployment was 1 cube up and 4 across, and they have their Teraton up 1, followed by their Cell Leader and then their Reb troopers right here in the corner. Now, keep in mind that the cubes do have a max capacity that you can be in one square or cube, whatever you want to call it. It's a maximum capacity of 4. So you go by the size of the model. So since these guys are size 1, you can technically have 4 troopers. Or for example, he's a size 3. That means you'd only be able to have one more guy of a size 1 in that cube, and then you'd be at max capacity. But that's just on your side. That's not for the enemy. The enemy would also have the same thing. So you could technically have a total of 8 capacity on one cube. That's 4 for you and then 4 for your opponent. And mission today will be to occupy these cubes, which is these are the victory points that you receive. Now the way you control them is you have to be the only character on that cube. So in order for the Rebs to score, at least one Reb member has to be in that cube solo with no Veer-myn in that cube with them. And you score at the end of your turn. So that's how the scoring works in this game. So you have 2 2s and the corners are the 1s. All right, so without further ado, we're gonna go ahead and start the first turn. The Veer-myn are gonna go ahead and go first. So our command dice, this is for the Veer-myn. They will have 3 base with 1 because their leader has a tactician 1. So they will have extra activation, and 2 extra dice. I think we want to try and get more extra cubes for them. So at any time you can reroll any of your dice that you do not want, and of course you're stuck with whatever the second reroll is. So we're going to go ahead and reroll all 4 and see if we can get some extra movement squares, since Veer-myn are more wanting to get into hand-to-hand. That wasn't any better because it's all nothing but splats. So that is what they're going to be stuck with. So the Veer-myn are going to have 3 splats and an extra shoot. And now we're going to go to the Rebs. And the Rebs are going to have a base 3. And then they'll add 2 because she's the tactician 2. Let's see what she gets. All right. So we got an extra square move, extra activation, a combat, extra die add to any pull, and then an extra shoot. So we're going to, I'm going to say let's go ahead and re-roll this one and maybe the combat and see if we can't get maybe some extra shots. Well, she got an extra square and she got a splat. So that is what they're going to be stuck with now. So that is it for the command phase. So now we're going to go on to the movement. So before we begin the game, there's a couple of modifications I did. I went ahead and moved the terrain as suggested in the rulebook to try and align it with the actual cubes themselves. So I just went ahead and adjusted a lot of this terrain to make it fit more snug in the cubes themselves, just to make it more easier for when movement is done. So that's exactly what I've done. And now we can actually go on to the first turn. The Veer-myn are going to take the first turn, and we're going to activate the Nightmare. He is going to go ahead and do a rush order. So he's going to be moving, well, sprint order, I'm sorry. So he's going to be moving 2 squares. So he'll be moving 1 and then 2 to here, to be behind a little bit of cover in case somebody tries to shoot him. And that is going to be the end of his activation. So now the Rebs are going to go ahead and activate, and they're trying to get to that. So we're going to activate this Reb trooper, and he's just going to sprint as well, moving twice. So he will move 1, 2, and just be trying to get a little bit of cover there. And he is good to go. So Veer-myn are going to activate, and we're going to activate this crawler, and he is just going to go ahead and move up as well. Oops, actually he is a stalker. Crawlers are the red ones. All right, so he's going to run up, and I believe they run 3. Yes, so he has a sprint of 3, so he is just going to get up in the face. And he's going to be taking a little bit of cover there. I will be marking all activations with these little X's. And for the Rebs, we're going to be using these little red little thingy-majiggers, showing that they've already activated. Okay, Rebs are gonna go, and we're gonna activate the Pterodon. He moves 2 for a sprint, which is exactly what he's gonna do, because right now it's all about trying to get to those objective markers. So he is just gonna move to this square. Whoops. Drop the whole ladder. He's just gonna move to this square here and just be ready for what is about to come. Fix that. There we go. VeerMyn are gonna go, and now we're gonna activate another stalker, and he's just gonna move up, sprinting as well, and be right behind his buddy. It's gonna be a quick showdown in here. All right, so now the Reb cell leader is gonna move, and she is gonna sprint. So she will move 1, and she's just gonna get up on top, and she's gonna be ready for next turn. She's gonna take some cover in that little area. Get ready to start blasting at some VeerMyn on next turn. Another stalker's gonna go, and he's just gonna move up with his buddy, and just be ready for next turn. Okay, we're gonna go with another Rebel Trooper, and he's gonna do the same thing. He's just gonna sprint. Be right behind the Pterodon. And he is good to go. This crawler is gonna go, and he's gonna sprint. And he's gonna be hiding right behind this location right here. That should be a 2. It just flipped over. All right, so he is good to go, and he's gonna go on to the Reb turn. So when you're shooting, it's all true line of sight. As you can tell, these 2 Rebs have no line of sight to anybody. So they're gonna have to sprint and kind of get into position. So that's exactly what we're gonna do. He is just gonna activate and get next to his buddy. And I guess he'll take some cover right behind him, and he is done for the activation. Progenitor is gonna move. He's just gonna run up as well. So actually he is going to move up like so and be right behind here. And now that he's activated, he does have a special ability called Surge. And when he uses Surge, he spins one of the splats, and he can actually make a move. So it's exactly what it's going to be doing now that he is activated. We'll have to do that on the next turn. All right, so now we're gonna get a little cheeky move here. This Reb is gonna just move 1. He's gonna get into position like so here to get a little bit of cover. And he does have line of sight right to the progenitor that just moved up. So he's gonna take a shot. So he is in cover. So that means that it's just gonna be a 3 dice test. And he will need to do 6s. No, I believe it's 5s. Let's see, the Rebel Troopers have a range of 5 or better. So he got no explosions, but he did get 2 hits. And now the VeerMyn progenitor is going to have to try and test to survive. And his survival is... he might be a 4. Yeah, 4 better for his survival. Let's see if he can't save. 4+. He fails. He only makes 1. He fails 2, but he does get an 8. So explodes. No. So he's only going to block 1. So that means he is going to take a point of damage. And I believe he has 2. Wait, does he have armor? No, he does not. So he's going to take a point of damage. So that means he is down to only 1 health remaining. So actually, since he got that lucky shot in, we're gonna spend the extra shot command die, and he's gonna take another shot at that progenitor, see if we can't finish him off. Needing 5s or better. He got 2 hits, no explosions, 4 or better for the progenitor. If he doesn't save this, he is gonna be dead. He only saved 1. Progenitor goes down. And that is 2 points. That's going to be scored by the Rebs early in the game. So that was unfortunate. And that actually scored him 3 victory points for the progenitor going down. So not looking good for the VeerMyn, already losing their boss in the very beginning of the game. So that means they're going to lose their tactician, and they're only going to be rolling 3 dice for command checks. Oh boy. Oh well. Let's see if they could bounce back. So now we're going to activate these crawlers, and they actually have a chance to take some shots at the Pterodon. So they're just going to move up like so. Move 1 there, and they're going to take a shot. And he's not going to be behind any covers. That's going to be 2 bonus dice for being out in the open. No higher ground, so it's going to be a 5 die shot going into the Pterodon. So they are needing 6 or better on their test. Now these weapons do have rapid fire, and they also have weight of fire 1. Weight of fire 1 means they can reroll 1 of their dice, and rapid fire means they can either shoot it as a regular gun or they can attempt to try and pin the model down. But in this case, I think we're just going to take some shots and see if we can't take them down. So needing 6s, and they can re-roll 1 die. That didn't help. They didn't get an 8, so it is exploding, which is an additional die, but to no avail. So they only got 1. So now the Pterodon is going to be saving on 3 dice. And the Pterodon, I believe, needs a 4 better. So I think this, of course, the 7 is gonna save, but the Pterodon's got a save of 5+. So he's okay. The 3s failed, but that 7 did save him. So he's gonna be able to block that. So now we're gonna go ahead and spin the Veer-myn's other shot. So they're gonna shoot again. So they're gonna have their 5 dice because it is out in the open. And they're gonna try and do it again. So that they got an 8. We'll go ahead and explode that. We'll just roll 1 of these. Oh, here's a different color one. Whoops. In the bin. So that misses, and then they have weight of fire, so they can reroll 1. And man, they are not feeling it today. They got 1 whole hit. Pterodon's gonna need 5s to save. And he saved none. But he does have armor, so that means that the 1 shot that goes through is just gonna ping off the armor. And yes, he does. He has an armor of 1. So nothing going for the Veer-myn that time. And that's gonna be the end of their activation. So with the Rebs all but activated out, it's just gonna go back to the Veer-myn, and they're gonna activate their final character, or guy, I should say, and he's just gonna do the same thing. He's gonna get into this square here, and so that way he can have a clear line of shot to the Pterodon, because that's probably the biggest threat that the Veer-myn have at the moment. So with the clear line of shot, it's gonna be 5 dice. And they're needing 6s. We'll go ahead and do their weight of fire, which they missed, but they do get an 8. So we'll just roll this, add it as an extra die. And no, they do not. So, but they do get 2 hits. They get the 8 and the 6. So now let's see if the Pterodon can get some saves. Pterodon just laughs, and he is okay. And that is going to be the end of turn 1 of a 5-turn game. The Rebs have gone up 3-0 because they did take down the progenitor, but nobody controls any of the objectives just yet. But the person who finished activating all his models from the previous turn first is the person that will take the first turn. So in this case, the Rebs had finished before the Veer-myn, so they're taking the actual first turn. So without further ado, let's go ahead and roll our command dice. Oh, and note to self, don't forget to spend your command dice. All this stuff that I didn't even spend, I only spent 1. Always keep an eye on your command dice because these always refresh. You don't keep anything, nothing transfers over. Every new round you're going to get new command dice, so don't forget, because that's what completely I forgot, was to use all these command dice. So let's go ahead and do the Rebs. They got 5 because their leader's still there. So let's see, we got a splat, extra die, extra shot, extra die. Let's see if we can get some more extra shots. Yes. So that is the Rebs command row. Now let's go ahead and do the Veer-myn. So I couldn't find anything in the rules stating that you don't lose your rerolls if you lose your commander. So I'm still going to go ahead and roll their 3 dice, and they're going to get their rerolls. As I couldn't find anything in the book. If for any reason you guys know that you can, just point it out to me and just let me know in the comments below, and we'll make sure to play it the right way next time. For now, I'm just going to do the rerolls. So let's see, they have activating an extra guy, extra die, and a combat. That's not too bad. I think I'll just stick with that. Another thing I forgot also is you can actually spend any of these dice for 1 reroll to reroll 1 of your dice. So that's another ability that you can do as well. Completely forgot about that. You can only do that once per turn. But that's going to be the Veer-myn players dice pool. And now let's go ahead and activate the Rebs. And actually, we're going to start off. We'll start off with the commander here. She is just going to go ahead and start blazing away. So she is going to take an open shot at this Veer-myn right here. And she's going to have her 3 base. And then on top of that, she's going to be on higher ground, which is 1. And then she's going to have 2 more because he is out in the open. So she's going to have quite a bit of dice here. So 6 total dice. And she is needing 4s or better because she has a rate of fire 4. And the crawler is going to need to save on 5s. So here is the cell leader needing 4s. And man, I am not rolling good tonight. So that's only 2. And she gets an 8. She still misses. So she only has 2. So now the Veer-myn can save on 6s, which he saves none. So that means that he is taken out of action because they have no armor, they have 2 wounds, which these 2 would bring him down to 0. So now she's going to take another shot, and she's going to spend her command die, and she is going to take a shot at him, and he is once again out in the open because she is on higher ground. So she will be rolling 6 dice, 3 for base, 2 for clear shot, and then 1 because she's on higher ground. She's needing 4s, and she misses these 2, but she does have an 8. And she misses again, but she's got 3 hits. Last time it was enough. Let's see if she can take out that other Veer-myn. Needing 5s, and no, he blocks 2 and he gets an 8. And he blocks all 3, so he is just fine. So now the Veer-myn are gonna go, and this crawler. I need to know these names here. So he's just going to move up 2. So he will move into the house here. And he's going to move 1 square over, like so. And he's going to be able to see this chap right here, because he is actually right there in the inside. And he's going to take a shot at this guy who is in cover. So it's going to be 3 dice. And it's going to be 3 for his survival. So he is needing 6s. Okay, not too bad. He did score an 8, a 6. So he's got weight of fire. Reroll that one. He misses, but he does get an 8 explosion. 3 hits. All right. Oops, I'm using the wrong dice. But hey, maybe that's why. Maybe I gotta switch them out. So now the Rebs are gonna try and defend. And I believe he defends on a 6. They have a save of 6 or better. He saved 2, but no explosions. So 1 is going to go through. They have no armor. So it's going to be a damage point going on this Reb Trooper right here. So the Veer-myn are going to activate another one of their models using the command die. And we're going to activate this Stalker. And he is just going to move 2 to try and get on this location. And he should have a line of sight, because I believe it is a range of 3 for their pistols. And they have, oh man, it's a range of 2. So, one, yeah, he's in range. Because he is here, and then 1, and then 2. So he's gonna take a shot at him. He's gonna be, I'm gonna say he's gonna be in the open, because he could be anywhere in the square. So actually, I would probably put him like so, in that area. So he's gonna have 3 dice. And actually, we're gonna go ahead and add an additional die to this test. So it's gonna be 4. Well, actually, no. You know what? We're gonna keep that because he's already gonna have 2 for being out in the open. So it's gonna be 3, 4, 5. So he's needing 6s, I believe. They are the stalkers. Stalkers have a rate. Oh yeah, 6s. So 6s. Not very good. But he got 2 exploding 8s. And that's it. So he got 2 going in. And now the Rebs are gonna need 6s to save. He gets no saves. So down he goes. That is 1 rep down. And score 1 point for the Veer-myn. So the Deadzone is going to activate, and he's going to do his special ability, which is going to cost both his both his activation points, and he has teleport. He can teleport anywhere on the board. Well, 3 squares away. So he's gonna teleport 1, 2, 3. He's gonna teleport right behind this guy. 1, 2, 3. And what that means is as soon as he reappears, he automatically goes into combat with that stalker as if he charged in there. So that means he's gonna have 3 base, 1 for the charge, 1 for being a bigger model. So he will have 5 dice. And we're gonna say that the Veer-myn is gonna try and survive. So he's eating 4s. He got no 5s. So he got 3. He got 2 5s. And now the Veer-myn has to take a survive test. And he's gonna need 6s. And he got nothing. He got obliterated. So now that's another point for the Rebs. And down goes the Veer-myn. All right, Veer-myn are up next, and they're in trouble. They have already lost 3 guys, almost half their crew. So he is going to attempt a charge. So he's just going to move his 2. 1, 2, and he's going to go into close combat with this fella here. So since he charged, he's going to get 3 plus 1 for the die, and he's actually going to spend an extra die to go and get 5 dice and see if he can't completely take this guy out. So we're looking at 3 plus 2 dice. He is needing, I believe, 5s for the attack. Take a look here. The stalkers, actually they fight on 4s. Wow, they're really good in hand-to-hand. No wonder we want them to move up. Okay, so 4s are better. So he did get 3 hits, not too bad. And now the Reb is just going to try and survive, which I believe it is 6s. No, he saves on 5s or better for the Reb. No, actually 6s. I'm sorry, I'm looking at the Deadzone. So 6s. He only saved 1. He only saved 1, so that means he's taken 2 damage. That is going to take him out. And down goes another Reb. So Rebs are going to go, we're going to go with this Rebel Trooper here. He's going to go ahead and sprint. So he's going to sprint like so. 1, 2, just start controlling this objective. And he's going to be placed behind this barricade so he can have some sort of cover. And he's going to take a wide open shot. And actually, I'm sorry, he's going to spend a shoot action to go ahead and take a shot at the wide open nightmare. So it's going to be 3 base plus 2 because he's out in the open. He's going to need 5s or better to hit. And he did pretty well. He got 2 8s. And that's about it. So he got 4 successes. And now the Nightmare is going to save on 4s or better to survive. He got none. Uh-oh, that's not good. So he saved none. So I believe he has an armor of 1. The Nightmare does have an armor of 1, so he'll soak 1, but he's taken 3 damage. And he has 3 HP. So down goes the Nightmare. That was huge for the Rebs. They just took down the big beast. And that is the activation for the Rebs. So now it's going to go on to the Veer-myn. So the Veer-myn only have the 1 stalker left. He's just going to rush up to 3 to try and score that objective. And he is going to be done. That's going to be the end of the Veer-myn turn. And Rebs, for their final activation, was his lone survivor. He is just going to move to one side here, try and adjust, and he's going to take a shot at this wide open stalker. So it'll be 3 dice plus 2. And actually, he's going to go ahead and spend a die to add an additional die. So it'll be 6 dice total. And he's needing 5s or better. Got some 8s. He got 2 to be exact. And he got that many hits. And the stalker's only going to save... He's going to save nothing. And he gets completely obliterated by that shot. And down goes another stalker. So that is the end of turn 2. So now let's get objectives for the Rebs. They're going to score 2 points here and nothing else. But then they took out the Progenitor, which is 3. That puts them at 5. The Nightmare's an additional 2. That's 7. And each one of these guys is an additional 1. So it's they're already at 10 points. They're 2 points away because the first person to reach 12 points is the winner. The Veer-myn have 2 points. They score an additional 1 here, and they score 2 points there. So they are at 5 points. So right now it is 10-5 in favor of the Rebs. But the Veer-myn are going to take the first turn, as they were the final players to activate last turn. So rolling for command dice, the Veer-myn are going to have their 3. They get a splat, which does them no good, and they can move an additional square, so we're going to reroll that splat, and they get an extra combat. Not too bad. The Rebs still have their leader, so they're rolling 5 dice for their commands. So they get a splat, they get an additional move, a shot, and a close combat. So we're going to reroll the close combat. 2 splats, and that's not too bad. So Veer-myn are going to take the activation first, and they are going to activate the Veer-myn that is inside here. Let's see if we can grab him out. So being in that cube, he's going to move his 2, 1, 2. He's going to go ahead and battle it out with this guy here. Since he's already wounded, that means that this crawler is going to have his base 3 dice. The enemy is wounded, so he'll have an additional 1, and he'll have an additional attack die because he moved into that square. So that was his long action since he charged. So he is needing 4s. No, he needs 5s because he's not as good as the stalker, but he does need 5s or better. And man, he is ticked off. So he's going to have an exploding 8. Nope, but he did get 4 successes. Let's see if he can't take out this this Reb trooper. And he does. He only saved 1. That is 3 going through. He only has 1 wound left, and down he goes. But at least he's still in some sort of cover. And on to the Rebs. So Rebs are going to go, and the cell leader is just going to move like so. Kind of placing her in the edge here so you can have line of sight to a few dirty rats here. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4. 5, 6, 7. She won't be able to shoot him because he's just out of his rate of, she's out of her rate of fire, which is only a 6 or a range of fire. But she is going to blast here, so she is going to be on top, which is going to give her an additional die. Plus he's out in the open, so that means she's going to be rolling 6 dice. So she is hitting 4s or better for her stat. She gets 3 hits plus an 8, an additional 8. So she gets a whopping 5 hits. So now the crawler has to hopefully save some of these, or else he is going to go bye-bye. Well, he didn't get any 8s, but he did save 3. That'll take care of those 3, but 2 are still going to go through. He has no armor. 2 damage is going to be applied to him, and down he goes. So I'm not too sure if I can do a sprint and actually assault at the same time. It doesn't really state in the rules. So just let me know in the comments below if I'm doing something that is probably wrong, but I'm going to go ahead and do it for just because it doesn't, I can't find it. But if you can show me, then I'll know for future games that I can't do that. So this fella is gonna go ahead and sprint. So he's gonna move 3. So he is going to activate by going, if I can grab him, he's going 1, 2, 3 for his sprint. Now he is gonna activate in the same cube as this fella, so that means that's gonna activate a combat. So since he moved in there, it's gonna be an additional die, and it'll be 4 dice. He will go, well actually he doesn't have any dice to actually spend, so he's just gonna go ahead and attack with this 3, and that is a stalker, so he's gonna need 4s to hit, 4 dice. So he got 2 and a couple of 1s, not the greatest roll. And actually, before you roll, you're supposed to nominate if you're gonna fight back or if you're gonna survive. In this case, I would just say he's gonna fight back. So he's needing 6s for his combat. And hey, look at that! He got all 3 6s. So he, well, I don't think that was an 8. I think this was like a 6, because I know he didn't get an exploding 8. So that means he actually managed to fight him off, and he actually did damage back. So that means that he took a damage. Oh, whoops. I guess I should be looking for the, there we are. So he took a damage from that combat. So since he didn't get any lucky rolls, the Veer-myn are gonna go ahead and spend their additional combat to go ahead and strike again and see if he can get lucky and try and take out that Reb. So we're looking at 3 dice. They're needing 4s or better. And he only got 1. They're not doing very good at that combat. And I'm sorry, the Reb trooper would have just chosen combat as well. And actually, he whiffed it. He got no hits. So 1 is going to go through, and that means that this trooper is now injured. Oh. Actually, he should have had 1 more die because he was injured. So let's roll 1 more die. And now he got a 3. Okay, so that ends that combat phase, and it's going to go to the Rebs. So Rebs don't really have much of a choice here. We're just going to go with the Deadzone, and he's going to do the same thing. He's just going to do a rush to try and get into here, and he is going to start combat with that fella right there. So he's gonna have 3 base, plus an additional die because he's bigger, plus an additional die because he's injured, plus an additional die because he has a buddy in there. So before I roll, the crawler is just, I should say stalker. The stalker is just gonna be he's just gonna try and survive. So we're needing 4s. Not the greatest roll, unfortunately, but you know what? We're gonna spend 1 of these splats to reroll 1 of these dice, and he got a hit, so it's gonna be 3 hits. And keep in mind, you can spend any of these dice to reroll 1 die. So now the survive on the stalker is going to be 5. So he got 1/6 and nothing else. He got no other saves. He'll block 1. He'll take 2 more damage. So down goes the stalker. Out of the game. So at this point, the Veer-myn are pretty much done. His pistol only reaches 2 squares, so he won't even be able to get any redemption for his comrades that went down. So I think at this point, the Veer-myn player is going to go ahead and concede, because at the end of this round, the Rebs will score 2 points here, plus 3 for the progenitor, 2 for the nightmare. So that's already 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So it would be a clear victory for the Rebs. And there you have it. There is Deadzone 3rd edition. I thought the game was really cool. I mean, just using the basic rule sets, it felt to play pretty smoothly. One thing I will say is that I do need a lot more terrain for this game, because you definitely want to take advantage of getting cover on the field, and that's one thing that I didn't have on this particular field, is I need a lot more cover, even if it's like little pieces of debris and whatnot, just to put them in any of the squares. So that's one thing I'm going to try and work on, is to try and get a lot more terrain painted up so I can put it on the board. And this is just 100 points. Depending on how many points you're playing, that's how many victory points you need to score in order to win. And as soon as you reach that victory points, you automatically win the game. If not, it does go up to turn 5 or 5 turns, and you determine a winner at the end of the 5th turn. But a lot of fun. But I'll definitely have to look into possibly getting the starter. It does look very tempting. Add more terrain as well. And I know currently I do have some Asterians and some Forge Fathers that I need to go ahead and get painted up, and see if I can take them up for a spin, see how well they do. But that's going to be pretty much it for this one, guys. If you guys have any questions or comments, feel free to comment below. And then once again, if I did anything wrong, please correct me in the comments below as well. I'm always reading these comments that you guys leave. And if you want to see more of this on the channel, let me know as well. I mean, I'm going to probably play a couple of more just to throw it up there. But if it's something you guys really want to see, I'm definitely going to invest a lot more time into fixing a lot more stuff and getting more content out for this game. If you haven't had a chance to check out the Mantic Companion app, man, it is really cool. There's just so much stuff you can do on there. You can build all kinds of armies. Of course, there's a free version, and then there's the paid subscription version. I went with the paid subscription version just because I'll be using this app a lot to bring more content to the channel. And it does have Deadzone, it has Firefight on there, it has Kings of War. But try out the free version if you have a chance. I mean, it's a really cool app, really cool way to get into this game as well. And that's going to do it for this one, folks. Don't forget to always paint your walls crimson. Have a good night.
Cool blood in chaliced hands, to the dregs towards the end.